there's any question.
It is a backup.
And she's new to our scene here. So, okay. And it doesn't tie up any
I can just keep the recordings. And if anybody, I mean, whatever anybody wants. I mean, I'm not putting them online. I don't think we're at that point.
Yeah,
but, no. But we'll have them, and they're, you know, useful for.
How do we, if somebody wants to join our meeting, like a Ken Bukowski, for instance, how does that work?
Well,
how do they notify us?
If the agenda is posted with the Zoom link, then they can just come in and they'll do just what just happened and be in the waiting room, and I would admit them, and I could admit them later. I could admit them at a certain point in the agenda. And then I could send them off at the end of that. So if we wanted to have a public comment time, for example, we could do that.
Okay, so if we detected that there was anybody who had joined us, we might throw in a public comment time to ask them if they've got something on their mind.
Let's hear what it is, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if you publish, because I would publish the agenda. So if I'm publishing the agenda and saying we're going to talk about whatever, and there are leagues that want to have input, you know, before they would have to come, but now you could just sign up and say, yeah, we'd like to have 2 minutes to give our opinion on whatever it is you're about to consider.
Yeah. Okay, so you get some kind of signal that someone wants on.
I know that they're in the waiting room, just like just now, right? What happened was when you came on, I was already here, and I got, you know, admit Sherry from the waiting room.
Okay, and you can mute then anybody.
Well, you're gonna. We can both mute, right? Because we're both going to be.
Oh, are you co-hosting me?
Yeah, I'm going to co-host you. Once I figure out, that's always. I don't do that as often, so I don't know where it is. Wait a minute. Here it is. Here it is. Okay, now you're a co-host.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. So then you can mute everybody, or you know, one at a time.
Ooh, you're breaking up a little. You're breaking up a little.
All right. Better? Are we better?
Say something.
Are we better? Did I turn myself off? Wait a minute. Did I mute myself?
No, you're fine. I'm hearing you now.
Okay.
I was just noticing that there was some grabber, you know, thing that.
Well.
Maybe that's just the way technology works with.
So Marianne is here.
Hello.
Here she comes.
Okay. Hi. Oh, that's sort of a fixed Marianne.
That one is fixed, but I think the real Marianne is coming behind her. Let's see.
Yeah, but I don't know how to get that off now.
You have to do start video.
Oh. Okay.
I don't have a photo like that on mine that is in lieu of me being live.
So you have to join Zoom and give them a photo.
Oh,
okay.
Well, never mind.
That would be the way that happens.
Okay. Oh, there she is. Okay, good. Hi, Marianne.
Hi. I thought it would be good to have one because sometimes I'm on something with 50 people and I don't want to look good all the time.
Exactly. Me too.
But on this one, I have to be able to wave my hand. So.
Okay, there's Eric also.
There's Eric.
Hi, Eric. Good morning. Can you hear us? Eric looks like he's not hearing us.
He's.
Yeah, hi. Yeah.
There he is.
There he is. He's just mesmerized.
Yeah. Hi, how are you?
We're fine. And here comes Leslie. Okay. We're getting close to a quorum.
We are.
And here's Leslie. Good.
Leslie.
I think it's one more for a quorum. But we won't start till 10.
No, it would be wrong.
2 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, we got to give them their full 2 minutes.
Here's Alec. Hi, Leslie.
Hello.
There's Alec.
Morning.
I just saw we had a request from Ken for a link.
Oh.
to the agenda and to the meetings.
Okay, how does he do that?
It came in my email. I just checked my email before I got on.
See, that's a somewhat informal but effective.
It was actually an email addressed to Madeline and somebody, Veda maybe? I don't know. Anyhow,
Mhm.
but it was apparently CC'd to me.
Okay, yeah, and not to me.
Well, he doesn't know yet because he wasn't at the,
Oh, I think he knows.
well, maybe he does know. That's correct. That's right. You're right. I don't know what he's.
Okay, what are you gonna do now? You're gonna do something?
Well, we can send him the link and the agenda. That's what we could do.
Okay.
Where did he write this?
All right. Let's see if we have one more, we've got a quorum here. Welcome, Alec. Glad you can join us too. Looks like you self-muted. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I just so.
You can even be audible now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope everybody's doing well.
You growing a beard?
Sherry, this is called laziness.
It's called what?
Laziness.
Oh, I see. No, never mind.
Ah,
Pandemic laziness.
Have you ever worn a beard?
I had for a spell. I was teaching college composition, and I wasn't that much older than my students, so I let my beard grow just to make
so
myself.
they could tell.
Yeah, just so they felt like they weren't being, taught by somebody who was their peer.
Right.
It didn't look good. I'm not really a beard kind of guy.
Yeah, no. Women have different takes on that,
Sure.
depending on how close they are to you.
Right. Well, my wife's dad has a beard. He typically has a beard. So it's not, it's familiar at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's see. Are you fiddling Madeline with it?
I am. It might be easier. Leslie, can you send it to him? Can you just send him the Zoom link I sent you?
Sure, I can.
Okay.
And the agenda is up online. I checked. Veda has put it up, so maybe
Right.
that's the reason he had emailed Veda as well.
Sure.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
I'll go ahead
probably
and do
it.
that.
Yeah. Okay, and oh, good. We've got our quorum now with Anne and Alex. Okay. As soon as we have their visuals, assuming they are going to visualize, we'll launch this thing. Okay. They haven't said yay, so I'm not sure they're hearing us yet. Anne and Alex, are you tuned in?
There's
I
a
hear you,
yay.
Alex. Yeah.
I am here, but I'm in a sort of a digital desert, so audio is all I get.
That's
All
great.
right.
I'm glad you can join us in any way. So we've got our quorum now, and I'm going to launch this. In the roll call, Veda has changed her communications to voter service. More about that later. And I want to read a message from Margo. Some of you may know about this, but let me read this to you. This is from Margo McGlone. And she says, just a minute. Since my fall, June 22nd, I've tried to maintain my league activities while in pain. This week, I contacted my primary care doctor, who had me take x-rays, which showed I have a vertebra compression fracture. The prognosis is 3 months of pain and additional 3 months of recovery. I am on my 4th week. Therefore, I need to take the rest of this month and August to devote to recovery, as there are additional health concerns and testing. I'm so sorry about this, as we are all eager to move forward, but I can be more effective after recovery. I hope this is okay, but if not, let me know the next step. I'll be resting a lot, but will have my iPhone by my side if any member wants to talk, as using my computer is too painful. I appreciate your leadership and the dedication of each board member, particularly during these demanding times. Sincerely, Margo. So, of course, I responded to her, letting her know that, you know, there shouldn't be any rush on her part to risk her recovery, and we're wishing her well and so forth. I said that she'd be welcome to view us via Zoom if she just wanted to see what we were up to, but don't feel obligated to do even that. So she'll let us know when she can be back in the picture, but at the moment she's not in the picture. And this is not a resignation from the board, and I didn't ask for any or hint at any such thing. So we'll take her as she can come, and hope maybe that she might be able to physically tune in perhaps to us whenever she might feel up to that. So Kathleen, I was just saying that Margo McGlone has been diagnosed with a compressed vertebrae and is in big pain, and it's going to take her a while to recover. So she won't be joining us now or in the near future. So poor Margo, I mean, God, it makes your spine just wince to hear of such things. It's always bad news. So, okay, moving on. Mary Ann.
Yes.
We'd like to approve the retreat minutes. The retreat minutes, of course, are very informal, and we wouldn't really have to approve them for technical reasons, but we might as well, since you sent them out and they were so thorough. I mean, I just, as I congratulated you on that very thing. That was a wonderful set of minutes.
I thank you, Madeline, for sending me the video, because I missed a few things.
Well, the
Well,
video
you
is
wouldn't know it
handy.
from your minutes.
Well,
Yeah.
What's that? I'm sorry, I missed that.
No, my connection's unstable. The video is handy for that. And so we should just let everybody
Somebody
know
said
we
something
are
and it's
recording
breaking up.
right now for the
Somebody
same
said
purpose.
something. Oh,
Okay?
Sorry?
handy, yes. Video is handy? Is that what you
Handy,
said?
handy.
Hand.
Yes.
Well, all right. Let's see what's now. Oh, let's, would somebody like to move the acceptance of the retreat minutes?
So moved.
Okay,
I'm sorry, who was that?
Roma.
Roma.
thank you. Yeah, and a second to that?
I seconded.
Thank you, Kathleen. All right. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Uh,
Okay.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? All right. 1,000 thanks, Mary Ann.
You're welcome.
Big appreciation. All right. Leslie, are you ready to do a
Yes, I
treasurer's
am.
report?
I am hoping that
Thank you.
out to you before the retreat. And let me review what I told you at that moment. And by the way, please remember that you do have the budget for this next year. So if people want to refer to that, it's there. The financials that I sent out to you before the retreat, had the June figures in them. I will get you the final figures for the official figures for the entire 2-year cycle, but as a comparison to budget soon. I'm going to start putting together stuff so that we can start, I can hopefully do the taxes a little earlier this year round. And at that point, I will make sure that all of the figures are sorted out. But looking at it quickly with an overview, once we got our figures as of the end of June. It does look as if overall we lost less money this past fiscal year than we did the year before. And that's very good. A good part of that is because of increased income from the PMPs after we raised the rates, and also decreased rent expenses, which were significant in terms of changing things. So overall, we had less of a deficit than we had anticipated when we gave that first 2-year budget to the convention. And going forward, we should be in considerably better financial shape, even with the concerns that we have about the monitor. We are also in better shape than we were for a while last year in terms of the fact that we are pretty much current on both our payables and our receivables. The only receivable I had outstanding at the end of June, and it won't come in probably, I don't know, Alec may have picked up the mail and have it by this time, but the MTC check, they always wait a full month after getting the invoice before paying us. So that should come in July for the previous issue of the monitor. And the only outstanding payable as of the end of the fiscal year was the deposit on the office. And for those of you who are just coming on to board or coming back on board, the agreement that we made with Sacred Heart was that when the lease was signed, that we would give them a deposit. Since the lease has never progressed, the deposit has never been paid. So that is still sitting there as a payable. And Sherry, in answer to your question at the end of the agenda about whether or not, you know, we should be reconsidering what we're doing with the space, we did have it. Our space is costing us only $250 a month to begin with. So it is a steal. It is part of the deal that we made with Oakland League. And when we were asked by the Father Bill toward the end of the last fiscal year, whether or not we wanted another year on the lease, we said we didn't think that we needed to talk about this for another year, but yes. And that was, you know, we had already had a couple of months of coronavirus shutdown at that point, but no way were we prepared to pick up and move either. And if we do decide to give up the office at some point, A, we don't have a lease. We could do that at any point that it works for us and for Oakland League. And B, it's one of those things where we don't want to do it in the middle of it. We want to know what we would do with the space. And Frank, I think Oakland League still feels that they need the space, but I also think that it is financially manageable for them even without us, which would not have been the case downtown. So it is something we might want to look at long-term. I think a good part of what is stored there right now is the stuff we've been trying to sort out and get to the Bancroft. We may be able to make some other kind of arrangement and give up that office. It's not a decision we need to make right away because it's costing us so little money. And I think that's the long and short of it. So, and then the last couple of last items back on the treasurer's report. The proceeds from League Day 2019 and 2020 go into the Bay Area Monitor side of the budgeting as of July. So that's partly the start of the fiscal year for the Monitor project in terms of its budget. And that's about a little over $3,800, $3,800, not thousand, $3,800. And then on the budget, and that also has to do with the Monitor. We need to see what Monitor fundraising comes up like. The last couple of appeals that are just basically factual, this is what we're facing, guys, that Alec has sent out have resulted in some significant fundraising. It came in before the end of June, so technically it's in this last fiscal year, but it is considerably more than we had expected. So, or at least than we had budgeted and anticipated before we started doing that outreach. So we'll see whether or not the increased level of giving continues in other ways. Alec's report can give us some feel for that. But as we mentioned at convention, we are planning on reassessing this a couple of months in, and by about the end of the first quarter, we'll take a look at whether or not the budget that we have is realistic in terms of the monitor project and whether or not we need to do amendments.
Thank you very much. Kathleen, did you have a question? I saw your hand up.
Well, no, I just wanted to affirm that do you remember that our meeting space, our place that we had really did provide a very good meeting spot for not only the smaller but larger meetings. And I heard from those who did attend our regional IN North, this was a very convenient place to come to if that was it. And because there was parking and everything else there, and you know, accessible to BART, you know, so I really, in the long term, I think that it's, I mean, we got to look way ahead now.
Right.
I think that we, you know, it is something to still keep. It really is of, I think, of value, and it meeting spaces and places often are hard to come by, and will continue to be expensive, I guess.
Right. Right. And that, I think that was part of our assessment when Bonnie and I and Deborah Scheffler got together, and in terms of responding to Sacred Heart was, you know, there are a number of pluses to that. Yes, we're storing some stuff there, but yes, just in terms of meeting spaces, if Oakland League went ahead with keeping it, we would presumably be able to make some arrangements to pay them to use that space, because we use it at very different hours than Oakland does. So if it were a matter of saying, okay, we only need it for, you know, the occasional meeting, group meeting, or whatever, in-person meeting. One thing about that, for the people who have not been in that space, is that that table is absolutely enormous. And for the size board we have, with masks, we can still do social distancing around that table. So it really is huge. Not to mention the fact that there is the room behind it that is rarely used at the time that we're there, where we could go and pull out some folding chairs and all sit around and look at each other from a distance. So yes, it would be possible to do in person there in ways that we couldn't necessarily do in somebody else's conference room space, for example. So all in all, there is really no good reason to give it up at this point, and some reasons for keeping our options open. And I totally agree with you, Kathleen, that we do need to consider the fact that there will be times, possibly in the future, when even small groups of people will want a central location. And that does very well, we've discovered, in terms of people's transit and transportation accessibility.
Okay, thank you. Roma, you got your real hand up and your blue electronic hand up. It's time to recognize you.
I just want everybody to realize how much I was paying for parking downtown, which was well over $30 every meeting.
Good Lord.
Parking is a big deal for me, and the fact that it's secured parking on the other side of that gate. I mean, that, I confess, the first time I drove there, I thought, this is not going to be good. Now that I'm used to it, I am just really taken to the new space. So anyway, just wanted to point that out. And BART is open, so I can try to ride BART.
Listen, I'm seeing your hand up there. I'm looking on my choices down here at the bottom of my screen. I'm not seeing a raised hand. Where do I find that?
Are you hosting the meeting, Sherry?
Yeah.
Then you don't get it. You don't have to raise your hand. You can just talk. I discovered that the first time I hosted it. Wait, I don't have it. Oh, yeah.
I'm a co-host with Madeline. So. Gee, what an elevated situation.
All right. There is one other thing that I would like to bring up in connection with the budget, and that is we had specifically amended it before it went to convention to allow for a subscription, a Zoom subscription for LWVBA. I just checked with Alec. I think we can use the Wells Fargo credit card that he uses for monitor expenses like mailing the issues and whatever to set up that Zoom account. So we'll need to, I think maybe it's a matter of Madeline and Alec getting together to make sure that that gets set up, and then Madeline would have the, you and Madeline would have the access information for it. So you could set up the meetings.
We can do that, or you could wait. I mean, honestly, I have no problem using my account for this. I really don't. And then I would donate it every month.
All right. So then we can wait and see whether it becomes necessary to set it up going forward.
Why don't we do
did
that?
Put it into the budget. It
Yes, we
doesn't
did.
have to be on you. So that's
No,
I guess that's really
totally
what I wanted to
understand
make
it.
sure of.
But
Okay.
just understand, for me, I do this for, this is not the only group that's using this.
Right.
this
He does it for a living.
I know. Yeah, that's what I get.
Well, what you're saying is it makes it easier for you to have an account because of the fact there are a number of groups you do it with. Yes, right. Mhm. Understood.
Okay. Thank you, Madeline.
No
everybody.
problem.
Let's see. There was a hand up from Veda. Welcome, Veda.
Thank you. I wanted to just mention that many other of the local leagues have Zoom accounts. So rather than the Bay Area League hosting one, we can use Madeline's or use Napa's or some other, so that I don't really see a need for us to purchase our own.
Okay.
Okay.
That
Thanks.
was it. I'm
Before we
lowering
go
my-
further, I
Well,
want to-
we do have it in the budget, so if we need to move, we don't have to we don't have to freeload on people. But if it works out well to not pay for it, then fine, it'll save us a little bit in our budget.
Okay. Thank you. I don't want you people to miss this.
Ooh,
Out there.
yes,
This is my
Yes.
latest A's regalia.
yes.
Season
You
starts,
gotta watch
you
those
know.
Hawaiian shirts, though, Sherry.
Oh, I know. They mean something now, don't
Yes,
they?
they do. I don't. Somehow or other, I don't think those guys are going to recognize you as one of them, though.
I have no danger, I think. Let's not even go there. Excuse me, because I have a bunch of Hawaiian shirts. So, okay, all right. What do we have next? The executive committee. I went to the bylaws to check this out because on Madeline's old set of model minutes and agendas and so forth, she always had an executive committee report. So I thought we probably should have an executive committee. They're useful, of course, to meet in the interstices between various meetings. We meet monthly, so very seldom would an XCOM thing ever come up. But nonetheless, since the bylaws say so and enumerates who should be on it, there is automatically the president, the vice president, and then a nominee by the president who gets elected by the board. And so I wanted to nominate Marianne Benson to be a part of that. So there's somebody who can take notes during an executive committee meeting. And then we need 2 more board folk to comprise a 5-member executive committee. So I wanted to see if there are volunteers who would like to be considered to be elected by the board to the executive committee. Do I see a plethora of hands? Roma. Yes, Roma. Who else? Okay. Hark?
I'm seeing Veda.
Veda.
Huh?
Veda.
Sorry? Veda? Great. Okay. Does anybody want to challenge these people? All right. All right. I think that's our 5-member executive committee then. And I thank you all, just in case we ever have to meet. Okay. Thank you. And Alec, I put you earlier on the agenda, so in case you want to disappear for any reason, you're welcome to stay, but you can also report and go. So what's up with the monitor?
So it's pretty much, there's nothing really to say that's new from the retreat. I I haven't actually been to the PO box recently, so I don't know, like, as far as the MTC checks arrival or what donations may have come as well.
God, there could be hidden wealth.
It could be. I'm sure I'm going to show up. There's going to be like $1 million in the PO box.
In your dreams.
You got to dream big. So yeah, we're producing the August edition right now. You know, getting the ads from the agencies who have pledged, maybe a few straggling inquiries to folks who had not gotten back to us. So that's sort of moving along. We're doing the monitor notes this month. Cecily is, you know, sort of on vacation, but I'll be putting out the newsletter. As we discussed previously, we're going to be running Leslie's monitor history features all this month. So we did the first one last Wednesday. We'll continue them going down. You know, the only thing.
Yeah, by the way, Alec,
Yeah.
Gail Murray emailed me and said, "Oh, that was so much fun." I went back to revisit all these people. So,
I'm very glad to hear it.
so somebody enjoyed it.
Yeah. So that'll keep going. And, you know, I was thinking a little bit, I don't have a proposal or a plan, but I do feel like back in the mode of writing the notes in addition to, you know, my usual sending, editing, and posting that stuff. You know, just being back in it and kind of remembering that it's a fair amount of work. And I feel like, you know, right now, what are we paying Cecily? Like 75 per post or something? What's, Leslie, do you remember?
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
75 for each one. Yes, right.
Yeah, I think at some point it would be really nice to bump it up. You know, I'd given a little bit of effort to trying to get sponsors for that email newsletter specifically, with not much luck, but I think we've expanded the you know, kudos to anybody who's been sharing and encouraging your membership to add on, because our numbers have really gone high. They just keep going up and up. So I feel like, you know, theoretically there's room for us to solicit other potential advertisers, and I welcome suggestions for that. Or if you know some folks who you feel like you'd make a good point of contact with, please, let's talk about it. So I guess that's the only real thing that's front of mind for me right now. Yeah, I think that's kind of it. If people have questions, I'd be happy to field them.
Anybody questions for Alec? I have to say that I've been a Monitor subscriber for a very long time. I don't know if from the onset, but the readability of that and the graphic layout too, both electronically and in the print edition, are just so outstanding. And Alec deserves virtually all the credit for that. And then the quality of the writing, of course, and the recruitment of the writers, not the least of whom is Leslie, with her contribution. She's really terribly good. And so we're blessed with this. And so you're wanting to maybe bump up by some increment a salary to thank people. It's really just a token honorarium, essentially, for that. But if you want to make a proposal to us at some time, Alec, I'm sure we'd be receptive.
I feel like you know, once our budget gets a little bit more, once we have once we're a little bit further into the year, maybe Leslie and I can touch base and you know, come to you with some kind of idea or something. I don't know. We just have to see where the numbers are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. I do think I'll take you up on that offer for me to bow out at this point.
Sure.
That's all right.
Yeah. We'll miss you.
All right. Have a good meeting, everybody. I'll see you later.
And thanks. All righty. So the next thing on the agenda is League Day planning. We need to have an initial committee here of the board and then include members beyond the BAL board and how we might do that. But the first thing of business probably is a date and location suggestion along with some discussion about a topic. There have been some discussions that have come in. I listed them on the agenda. And any one of those, I think, is quite viable. And so if this has generated any further ideas on your behalf, let us know. But first, let's talk about date and location. When is this usually held, League Day? Is it February?
It used to be for a long time, it was the first weekend in January. I mean, the last weekend in January.
Mm-hmm.
And we found sometimes that didn't allow enough time for the last minute. It allowed plenty of time for our PR and whatever, except for the fact that people got distracted around about holiday time. So then they weren't paying any attention to your League Day is coming things until after they kind of got back in gear the first week of January. That meant sometimes you didn't know how many people were coming until practically the last minute. It also meant that if you were doing some last minute juggling or just even trying to pin down your speakers, sometimes you had difficulty doing that. So it's kind of moved to the first weekend in February, but that's been the general time slot, is the end of January, very beginning of February, before everybody else really gets into major activities in the new year. But hopefully far enough in so that we can get our final planning finished.
Right, and so not to bump up against, excuse me, council.
Right, but we've sometimes had some conflicts unless we manage to get the word out really well and really early on what the date is. And even then, sometimes we have conflicts with local leagues who want to do their program planning meetings around about that same time slot.
The February time slot?
Right, we have the late January, early February time slot. It's the typical time slot that a lot of local leagues use for their program planning. And if they do that meeting on a Saturday, then, and we're doing ours on a Saturday, then we've had conflicts.
Have we thought of March? Giving us more time to plan and not quite up against council, not that
Right.
council is a big,
Right, not
we
as a
might
big
even
thing.
do
Yes,
that by
but-
Zoom, yeah.
Right. But no, I don't think it's ever been pushed that late.
Mhm.
But I'm not quite sure what the purpose was behind the original timing. I just it's been for a long time. It was just
Yeah.
kind of automatically, oh well, the last Saturday in January is going to be League Day, and I just put it on my calendar that way.
Mhm. Yeah, it's our day, and so we can do it anytime we want. I've got a couple of hands up here. Let's go for Alex, and then Veda, and then Roma.
Yeah, I think maybe towards the end of February might be appropriate. It gives them enough time after the holidays and enough time to scramble for speakers to replace speakers who can't come at the last second, because that happens every single time, no matter what you do. I mean, unless you promise to take them out in the gangster style, you're going to get that. And I think I know at one point we were conflicting with like the Super Bowl or something, and I don't think there's much sports activity towards the end of February. I don't know, unless
Especially
it's like
not
the
this
Olympics.
year, perhaps. Yeah.
Well, I don't think there's going to be much of anything, but I don't know, maybe towards the end of February is a suggestion.
Yeah, you don't want to get too far into March, because then you do get into if not this year, but in general, if you get too far into March, you're starting to conflict with the basketball frenzies.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah.
Who was next? Did I say
Veda.
Roma? Yeah.
Oh,
Hi,
think
I
Veda
also
was
wanted to mention that the election, should we be concerned that there's an election on the second week in March this year or next year? Is it going to be election season? That's a consideration for moving league day forward or backward. So it's a good time for March, the end of March, but
yeah, we had some complaints this
February.
last year. We had some complaints this last year because we had it later in so late in February, and people complained it was right up against the primary. So that's a good point, Veda.
Whoa, though. This was primary year.
Yeah.
But next year,
2021. So is there anything happening?
I don't think there'll be a primary next year. Aren't they only every 2 years?
God help us, I hope so.
Hey, hey, this is the League of Women Voters. We know these things. I think there's not a primary. There may be some local elections.
I think there's some smaller elections, but it's not a big, big election.
Yeah, not something you really need to stay away from, I don't think. Roma. Veda, I'm sorry, were you finished?
You'd think I'd remember because I've done program planning now for 4 years in a row for our league. But as I recall, the program planning materials are usually due April 1st. Does that match everybody else's memory? So folks like to have their program planning we do ours mid-February. So it's not an issue. I just think that if we can get our date out early enough, the leagues can plan around it, was my only thought. Because I remember that has been a conflict in the past after we moved later. And I do want to echo I don't know if others who've coordinated league days agree, but I found that doing it in January just really was tough because people went down for about 2 weeks during Christmas. So it just made your January kind of a nightmare. It was just hectic. It wasn't not doable. It was just very hectic.
Okay, any further comments on that? What do we think then about end of February? Does that bring? Eric?
Can I make a comment, Sherry?
Sure.
Yeah, the end of February and the beginning of March isn't good for me personally, unless we still have the COVID thing going, because it's because I would like to do something and get out of here at that time. But if there's COVID, I'll be here. And now, is League Day and all day thing, or is it a couple hours kind of thing?
Well, it's pretty much all day. It tends to start around 10 and end about 2.
Oh, I see. Well,
includes lunch.
And you join in by you can join in by a telephone also.
Well, we could perhaps set that up.
I'm just asking.
Heaven knows.
I'm just asking. If I'm not home, then it isn't good. If I'm home, if there's COVID going on still, and I'm home, then it's fine anytime.
Well, we might miss you, but we're not going to plan it around you.
Okay, fine, good, okay.
All right.
We have streamed it in the past. We had a live stream a couple years ago.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay, well, the end of February then? Is that the general
20th,
consensus?
Yeah.
Okay, to consider and
The
looking
end
at a
of-
date.
You've got President's Day in that week, and often the schools are closed
Yeah.
Yeah.
that week in February.
Mm-hmm. That would be a week to avoid. Let's see, that's
assuming the schools are going to be open.
Yeah,
well, yeah. All right.
President's Day
Let's
is
be positive,
the
people.
15th. Ash Wednesday is the 17th. So that means, isn't Easter going to be that next weekend?
No,
that's
No,
Not
no,
in
Easter's,
February, no.
takes 40 days.
yeah, I think 40 days.
It tends to be
I
March
think
to
I think I'm
April.
remembering why we wanted it the early part of February, because then you do start getting into all of the the president's holidays and whatever, and some of the other stuff that complicates matters.
What about that last weekend?
Well, which to me means February 20th is the best date because it's the week before that it's the president's holiday.
I'm not sure. The President's holiday might be the 15th. Is it the 15th or the 22nd?
It's the 15th, President's Day.
So it is the 15th. It's before.
Okay. Roma,
But
you
either,
wanted
I
to
think
say
either the 20th or the 27th. I think either one would work.
I'm
Okay.
just wondering, because it seems like you have to go mid-February or you have to move into March. I'm just wondering if we ever thought about looking at that, like March 6th. Is there a reason I'm not thinking of why that's too late?
That's getting
Curious.
really close to our council. Don't we usually hold council at the end of April?
It can go as late. It kind of replaces convention. It could go as late as May.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure why we had that one in April. I'd just like to point out in connection with the March issue that March is Women's History Month. So if we wanted to,
Theme.
you know, if we wanted to go back to trying to do it around League's anniversary, we would do it around February 14th, which is kind of what we were trying to aim for originally this year.
Yeah.
But if we want to go later, we tie it to Women's History Month, if depending on what our topic is. But it does kind of make people a little more focused on groups that are primarily women like ours.
Somebody
So
said March
sometimes it might be an
6th.
advantage.
Yeah, if somebody said March 6th, there's a possibility.
Yeah, Roma did.
Okay, that's a
You're gonna-
possibility.
Saturday or
Mary
Friday?
Ann?
Saturday or Friday?
Saturday.
5th is Friday.
Yeah.
Okay.
We used to do alternating, and the ones on Friday were a longer session, and they were often intended to involve people from agencies. So if we were doing something where we really, really wanted this to be something where the agency people would also attend, we would do it on a Friday because then it was a work day for them. And the Saturday ones were more, but they were a little shorter, and they were more aimed at our regional membership. Not that we were exclusively one or the other, but alternating allowed people from maybe even from sponsoring agencies to attend more easily. And it also helps you sometimes in getting speakers.
Good institutional insight there. Thanks, Leslie. Roma.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't raise my hand again. I'm just pondering everything everybody said.
No, there's no pondering.
Sorry.
Sorry. Okay.
Sorry about that. Oh.
Okay. All right. Now, what say then we consider the 5th and 6th as possibilities as we explore ideas about topic, and it would depend on a locale too. I think we have to think of the possibility of a physical location. By then, one hopes that things will have sorted out, and so we have to plan for it and then maybe cancel it later. But where was the last League Day held? Remind me.
Dominican Center.
Yeah. Fremont.
Okay. Oh yes. I recall, with the golf carts and all. Yes.
Right.
That was
Who could
such a nice
forget?
location. Really nice location. We talked about this year possibly going to the San Francisco Library.
We did.
Do we have a reservation already?
No, I don't know if they're taking them now. It was too far ahead both times that I requested. And now
I
I'm
see.
sure they're taking them.
Yeah. Do you remember how far in advance they did want?
No, they just said check back.
Right. And right now, I'm sure they're just not doing that for that. But that's certainly an attractive possibility. So they have a community meeting place?
They have a great location. I mean, the thing is, you go to the downside was people who didn't want to go to Civic Center because right. But if you get past that, it's right next to BART, and it's a very big, beautiful space in the downstairs of the library.
They'll just have to come with a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, that's any other suggestions for locales? Alex, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, could we just ask them now? I mean, even if, who knows, they may just pencil us in or something.
Put us on some pending calendar or something.
Yeah, yeah.
If it's
Is
a-
that possible?
Okay. Who wants to chair this thing?
We have to find a topic first. We're all going to avoid topics that we know we'd be in charge, so it's going to be hard.
Yeah. Truth, yes.
It's usually something that we fling on to the new people.
Who's new?
I think Roma was new when she led her group.
Yeah.
And I think Alex was new. Weren't you somewhat new, Alex? When you did transportation?
No.
Has Alex ever been new?
Yeah, I know.
No. Never.
Okay, well, don't all stampede yourself in the
Yes.
herd.
I think Eric's kind of taken himself out of the running, isn't he?
It sounded
Because
like
he may not be here.
preemptive.
That was smart.
I'm learning about all of this, and I'm learning about everything here.
Well, I tell you what.
I do think that whoever said that we kind of need a topic might be a good point, and that is that, for example, when Alex and I did the transportation one, it was because it was transportation. And as transportation chair and a committee member, it just kind of fell to us. So the question about, you know, what are we going to cover is valid. If it's something that doesn't really fit neatly into somebody's portfolio, then I think we need a point person on the board to oversee it, and we need to recruit some people to work on it. So, for example, one of the potential topics I had in mind, which doesn't fit neatly into any of these, is, and it's something I think that is being overlooked by the league, is the potential, the issue of privacy issues like surveillance cameras and facial recognition and plate reader technologies. This is stuff I'm putting into the chat. And the potential misuse of this by government. What does it do to our trust in government, for that matter? Under the current policing issues situation that we have, I think it would be related but not the same. So it might not be a rerun of everything that people had already been discussing. But the more I've learned about some of the technology that's available, the more it's occurred to me that government has a role both in regulating this and restricting it, and also has been using it already. And all of that can affect the way that the government relates to its citizens and vice versa.
Well, that's a pretty comprehensive analysis. My God. Leslie, you've obviously been thinking of this.
Yeah, I have been. I've been actually kind of collecting some clippings and whatever around it, because it's just one of those things where I don't see people, I see very few people addressing it head on at this point, and not necessarily from the same angle that the league does, which is, well, what about the way that government operates and some of our institutions? And that's, you know, that's league's purview, really, is dealing with how government handles its citizens and vice versa.
Yeah.
That's an intriguing thought.
Maybe the topic becomes, because we could have, you know, 2 or 3 workshops, and I think the racial equity in policing should be really, you know, we need to know where we are and where we're going. What you're talking about, Leslie, fits right into that whole government. Maybe we're talking about the topic of equity in the Bay Area, racial or public safety. You know what I mean? In other words, we're looking at where the Bay Area is going and what our role in terms of the league in all these various issues. I'm just, you know, because these are the issues that are on everybody's mind.
Right, right. Yeah, one of the things that occurred to me was that in some senses, the privacy issue thing is very much a Bay Area. I mean, we are a tech center. Some of this stuff is coming out here, and at the same time, we're getting substantial pushback from some of our communities here. So I think that, you know, that we would certainly have probably a wealth of people to draw on in the way of people to speak to it, both pro, con, and in between.
Right. Today's choice.
And yeah, it definitely ties in with the policing thing too. The facial recognition thing, they've proven that racial recognition technology has not been trained on multi-ethnic faces.
Actually, I really like the topic, but I'm still wondering if our best bet and the thing that's most relevant to our leagues, and maybe this is just the South County, it's the racial equity in policing is really, you know, the spin out from Black Lives Matters. That's all my friends are talking about. Now in San Jose, obviously, it's the Latinx community on the east side, and we're about to have huge, I won't say confrontations, but I'm going to say it's royal the South Bay like I've never seen in this part of San Jose. So maybe that's just me, but I don't know, just something that's topical. Leslie, I don't want to lose that theme of surveillance, because sitting right here in the heart of Silicon Valley, that is something that the geeks talk about constantly. I'm telling you, in my house, full of tech geeks, that is just the topic. What are the limits? Where do we go? Let's don't kill the goose that laid the golden egg, so to speak. So I mean, it is good. It's good, Leslie. It's really good.
I think they're both really good. I really think that the racial equity lens is a huge thing. I know Contra Costa County has a racial equity commission that just did a big report to the Board of Supervisors and regarding how they should handle their budgeting. I think how that lens is applied regionally is a real conversation we could have as to how different, how we are looking at it in different places. And part of that might be how police budgets are being changed, right? And how many school districts have eliminated SROs entirely? What's happening? How does that impact all of our cities? All of that.
Yeah, and even though this would be next February, March,
right?
That's the kind of thing that's not going to go away.
No.
And DEI is a national and state league emphasis through this too. The only downside is that it is so topical and has been so handled by every kind of media. You wonder if there's finally a sort of a topic exhaustion on something like this. I just throw that up as a thing because people get so exhausted so quickly these days, and things flit off, and then there's a new topic du jour.
Well, Madeline's point about the equity lens, that if we look at the equity lens, that's a lot of flexibility there.
Can I add something to kind of I have one of these minds that thinks, boxes don't exist in my brain, unfortunately. I wish sometimes they did. But it seems to me all the stuff that we're talking about really goes back to transparency. And I think that's one of the foundations of the league, and in any kind of oversight or, all the observers that we don't have that we wish we did have. Transparency is one of the big things we're looking for. And maybe we could, have a kind of a more vague title, and then underneath it have workshops on different topics. That's an idea.
Oh, I think that's an excellent suggestion. There are hands up here, Veda, and then Roma.
Most of everything I was going to say has been stated already. I think that it's a really timely topic, and it would be great for us to look at this.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
Period. Stop.
Yes. By the time I got my hand up and
yeah, my apologies. If y'all would wait till I recognize, excuse me, we could be a little more orderly. If that's an important thought. Okay, Roma.
I just was curious when Veda said this, exactly what did you mean, Veda? when you said this, because I lost the thread there for a second. So I'm going to go back to Veda.
Do you remember what you said, Veda?
I'm on hold with Zoom, so I keep muting and unmuting my microphone. I think that transparency is the big issue right now, and local leagues are looking for direction. And so whatever, whatever funnel we can give them to help guide them, I think can be really useful, especially bringing in LWVC, talking about what's happening at the state level is always interesting. And I'm sure they would be interested in participating on this wealthy topic. Because what we do at the Bay Area influences what happens at the California State Convention. And
Alex. Oh, sorry. I thought you were finished.
All done.
Okay, thanks. Alex and then Roma.
Okay. Yeah, I think the idea of transparency is kind of an overall theme is, I mean, it can fit so many, unfortunately, it can fit so many subjects because there's such a lack of it in both local, regional, and local at many levels. I mean, from school board to city council to whatever special commissions they might have. And God, just MTC. If you just had the whole thing on MTC, the transparency thing would be, you could go for a week. So, I mean, I think it's an overall, like an umbrella or something, I guess, that we could kind of choose the subtopics that we want to, or depending on, a lot of it depends on who we can get to speak, as we all those of us who put one of these things together knows. Sometimes the topic of discussion shifts a little when you can't get A, but you can get D as a speaker. So it gives us a little more flexibility, I think.
Mm-hmm. Roma.
I was just wondering if all of you saw what Helen Hutchinson put out about being extra vigilant in the time where we've suspended much of Brown Act and all these other things. So
Yeah.
At any rate, the more I think about it, so sort of ditto to what Alex just said, we could go police, we could go in government, regional bodies. I mean, it's a lot of flexibility.
You bet. Eric, no? You have a little yellow around your box like you were about to speak.
I didn't say anything, no.
Never mind. You made some noise.
That's not anything.
Okay. I tell you what, to try to keep on agenda too, I just wanted to open that discussion. I'd like to put that to the agenda for next time to get really serious about determining. But this will give you a month to think about it. We'll be getting the minutes from Marianne too that'll remind us of a few of the topics maybe that were brought up. She's beginning to cast her eyes heavenward. Yes, Marianne?
Madeline, are you taping? Is this being recorded?
It's recorded, and so is the chat. So anything anybody wants to make sure to get in here, you could put into chat. Marianne will get a copy of the chat and the recording.
And so I can get the recording.
You can get the, I will send you the recording just like last time.
Absolutely. And the chat.
And
We're
the
all
chat.
reminded of that. This is all so new to most of us, unless you've been Zooming 12 hours a day, as some may have. But put into chat before we leave here any thoughts you might have that you want us to percolate for the coming month, because that will also go to Marianne. Okay. Is that a real hand, Kathleen?
That's a real.
Okay, Kathleen.
I was just going to say, given all of our discussion and what we're going to do at the next meeting, I think that we will then be able to step up, volunteer for a committee to plan this and share this.
Yes.
Stage.
Absolutely, absolutely. And fear not, just because you suggested it doesn't mean, but it will put you on the top of the list. Yeah. Okay.
Do we want to pick a date? Do we want to pick a date? Because then I could start to send emails to the San Francisco Library, for example.
Right. We were talking about the Friday or Saturday, depending upon maybe the topic selected and if we're going to go for agency people. And I think the 5th and 6th of March
So
seem to be, yeah. So who would like to explore with San Francisco Library?
I'll follow up because I
Will
sent
you,
an
Madeline?
email
Okay.
before. But do you want me to ask for both dates? I mean, we're only going to do one, right?
Right. But we'd like them to hold if they're willing to
If
hold.
they're holding. I just checked their calendar right now and they're not, it doesn't look like they're doing anything. I mean, I will send somebody an email, but the normal
they're probably-
calendar process is on hold.
They're probably not committing to anything
No,
at this point. Although March is so far out, I think we're safer.
we hope.
For a commit. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
And thanks, Madeline.
Sure. And so what time? I will just tell them in the morning, like from 10 to,
10
what am
to
I
2?
asking for?
Yeah.
No,
Let's say 9 to
9 to
3.
12,
Yeah.
right?
On
9 to 12 on Saturday, but what do you want on Friday?
9 to 3.
Oh,
9 to 3. Just because there's a certain amount of gathering and then dispersing and,
Yeah.
and so forth. And we will want to be considering lunch.
So 9 to 3 on both days, on Friday and
Sure,
Saturday?
why not?
Why not? Okay.
Because we just don't know.
Okay.
And check to see if they allow catering inside.
They have a kitchen
Mm,
there, so I'll see what they're doing.
okay.
Who knows?
They-
That also may all be changed as,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Oh,
definitely.
yeah.
We may have to have people brown bag it if there's any eating at
It
all.
wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, or box
Okay.
lunches maybe.
So let's see what the options are.
Yeah.
All righty. Thank you. I think we've accomplished some good stuff here, and I appreciate that. Moving right along. Bay Area League Council, April or May, and the where again. Council is so small in its, requirements. Let's say, do we usually have a speaker at council, or do we just do business?
We used to do a short business meeting and then have a speaker. And this last time round, Veda put together that very good, essentially workshop on voter service, sharing news from the state and similar stuff in terms of, it was almost when I first joined League, the State League used to have about 2 sessions a year when they did a day of workshops, 3 workshops in the day, and a lunch and a chance for a networking. And you would get trained on how to do action, for example, and how to do voter service, and what it meant to be a president was always part of the first set of the year. So, it's one of those things where we could use it for that kind of networking and in education and general service to local leagues, let's put it that way. Something that would really benefit the local league so that they would have a reason to attend it and really get something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be a matter of finding out what do local leagues feel that, they really need in the way of support.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other suggestions for what we would be doing at council? How about when, given we're now talking first week in March for League Day, and we're able to go out, says Leslie, to May, I think, for this. We probably should think maybe May then. And the where, we have to think that by then we'll be allowed to have a physical place, just as we need a physical place for League Day. Where was our last council, or our convention was, how soon we forget.
Convention was virtual. Council council was at the Bellevue Club.
Ah, oh,
Right. Right.
that was interesting. I was not there, but I remember the place. Okay, what do you think? Hmm?
I think
Do-
that there's a location, and I'm just going to take my hand down since you threw it out to everyone. There's a location downtown Oakland, and it's the Nonprofit Center. And I think it's on 10th in Oakland. And it's a pretty nice space. It can accommodate lunch.
Okay, okay. Do we do anything like alternating between north and south?
We
for
have, yes.
council?
We had a council a few years back in Sausalito.
Ah, I remember that was the Bay Area, what's that called? The Bay Model?
Yeah.
Mhm.
That was a few years ago. I remember that. I liked that. That was nice.
That's a free location, but there's no public transportation.
Right, right. That it's awkward to get to, as I recall,
Yeah.
transportation wise. Do we belong then in the South for this? Should we be closer to wherever the new BART station dumps people in the southern region? Eh?
It's their turn.
Huh?
It
What's
is
that?
their turn.
It's their turn
Yeah,
to
it
have
is
a
their-
south location. And there must be some meeting places near wherever the
Yes,
newest BART station is. Mhm. That
lots.
would be kind of fun to, most of us are not going to take BART down there since there isn't a loop to San Jose yet. Uh, what is that called, that station down there?
Diridon.
Sorry?
You mean the downtown San Jose station?
No, yeah, is that
No,
open?
Various.
No.
Very yes.
The one that's open
Oh,
now,
Berryessa. Ah,
which is very north in San Jose, very north, but there are some meeting places nearby.
aha. So that's a possibility.
Well, we're pretty excited about having BART in San Jose, in our city limits after decades of talking about it. So it's kind of a big deal down here.
It is. We thought it wasn't going to happen in our lifetime, and here we are,
Right. Right.
still alive. Okay, well, think about that, okay? Let's do another think for next and come up with a place, a date, and maybe even what we're going to do with it besides have a business meeting. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much. And we're moving on now to a break. Would you all like to take a 10-minute, 5-minute break? Raise hands if you want to break right now. Oh, just let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah, and let's reconvene at 10 past. Well, no, let's reconvene at 1/4 past. Okay.
1/4
Okay. Thanks.
And if anyone's staying behind, I was on the cell phone. What was the date that we chose for our league day?
The 5th or 6th of March.
5th or 6th. Anything to put on the calendar as of yet?
No.
Or did we decide topic when I was gone?
No. We've done a big put off to
No.
the next board meetings.
Okay, thank you.
We're breaking.
So there's something wrong with this. It says place and charger, so it's not picking up. I'm gonna, how long, are you still on your break?
Well, this whole thing will go on
Okay,
until 12:30.
okay, all right.
Yeah,
Well, I'm gonna
yeah,
close the
that's
door.
fine, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and I haven't gotten any answer from Susan Windraft. Well, I just asked her to phone me back.
I'm studying Leslie Stewart's office space.
Oh,
She seems to have a fireplace in it.
yeah, it looks lovely. Is it a beautiful day in Berkeley?
Oh, yes, just quite typical.
Oh,
So boring.
so boring, all those views of the bridge and all that stuff.
All that stuff. Yeah, we're going to go to Mendocino on Wednesday for a 4-day at the Hummingbird Haven, where I was the winning bidder against Helen Hutchison
Oh, wow.
at convention. And I lurked over the bidding sheet because that's how I got undone last time.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
As every good bidder knows, Sherry.
I've learned that lesson. And so I beat Helen, and it's a wonderful package. It really is, except of course in the virus state, it's a little more truncated, but nonetheless, it's going to be a
Hummingbird?
nice change of scenery.
Where is it in Mendocino?
In Mendocino.
Oh,
It's-
okay. Is it
yeah,
is
it's
the hotel on the main? My
yeah, it's a
father-in-law got-
B&B.
Oh, yeah. Okay. My father-in-law got married there years ago, and it was the coolest wedding I ever went to in my life.
God, how nice.
It was very small because, you know, it was his fourth marriage. So
They get smaller and smaller.
Yeah, they
I
get small.
suppose.
none of us wanted to put too much into it at that point.
There would be a little less to put into it.
Yeah.
Oh my, yes. So we're truly looking forward, and it's right now the whole West Coast is in good shape, weather-wise. You know, it's in the 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
Quite not summery, really, more like spring.
Mm-hmm.
So hooray for that. Okay, let's get underway again. It's 1/4 by my computer says it's 1/4, so therefore it is. We wanted to talk about the nominating committee needing 2 board members to add to it. The current nominating committee is headed by Ann Draper, and she has Melissa Breach and Ken
Warner.
Warner.
Yeah, Warner on that. So she needs 2 more. Under the bylaws, they are board members. And I had thought it was board members nominating people, but apparently they are supposed to be board members. So who, I know that you've all been thinking about this and thinking, me, I want me. So who is that? Who is that? We need 2 board members to be on nominating committee headed by Ann Draper. Who would like to do that? Eh? Look at that. Look at that. Well, I'm
Last year, so I don't know if I should volunteer again, but I want to tell you, I had a great time.
great time.
Yeah, it was.
Did you hear that, everyone?
Really good, and maybe it should be one of the newer people. Not
Who's
to-
new?
Eric.
Who's new? I have this feeling about Eric, but he can speak for himself.
No,
Eric?
yeah, I wasn't paying attention. I was just on the telephone about something. There's a Berkeley Climate Action Fund, and it's a bad measure that the city council is considering here, and so I've been working on that. I wasn't paying attention. I was on the telephone.
Oh, never mind, Eric. You're spared, I think.
You know,
but hey, Roma says she had a wonderful time.
Yeah.
And is thinking maybe there is a prohibition, but of course there's not. So
No,
Roma,
there's not.
yes, Roma. Okay, you're it.
Well,
You're
there
one
is
of 'em.
something to be said for continuity in a way. I mean, so that's why I was thinking it should be somebody newer. I don't know if Leslie wants to do it again or.
There's Leslie to the left of you,
Leslie.
to the right of you, whichever.
No, I don't want to do it again. Unfortunately, I would love to put Margo on this because I think she is such a people person, but at the moment with the uncertainty, I mean, it's not as if we would crank into action right away. After all, Roma, you volunteered for the nominating committee when you were still having your shoulder problems and couldn't join us for a lot of meetings, but we knew that the real work was going to come after hopefully you were in good shape, and that's what happened.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I mean, if Margo feels that she can continue on the board, she might be willing to volunteer for this because she really is a fantastic outreach and contact
Yeah,
person.
yeah,
It's obvious from everything she said that she really loves being in touch with people.
yeah, yeah.
That
Ditto, Leslie, ditto.
But I don't want to nominate her in her absence. I mean, I can nominate her in her absence for this, but I don't want to essentially put her there without consulting with her about it.
right. I can contact her after this meeting. Either I'll telephone her or reach her by email. She said being at a
And she
computer
has
is
such an
very
emphasis on
painful.
DEI for one thing,
Yes,
and I
she
think
does.
that's going to be really important to us.
Mhm.
Yeah, and young people as well.
Right. And the real work is not going to start, of course, until the end of next year, probably, although Anne has agreed to help us find a communications person. So, hooray. Communications people, let's put it that way. Yeah. So we've got Roma, yes. And I'll call Margo and
Perfect.
talk with her about what commitment she would like to make, if any. I think you're absolutely right. I don't even know the woman yet, and yet in advance we've learned so much about her enthusiasms. So Eric, you had your hand up for a moment there.
I took it back down again.
I see the disappearing hand.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Anybody else? Well, this is good. This is good. I really like this, and I better make a note to myself. Call Margo. Yeah, she said being at a computer is very painful for her, so I gather she doesn't do much email right now. It's just a terrible circumstance.
Yeah.
Sherry,
Yeah.
I can tell you, dealing with the same thing myself, it is very painful to be at the computer. So I just want to let everybody know that that is absolutely the case, and it can be quite agonizing, and then you're in pain for several hours.
She said she'd have her iPhone by her side in her bed.
Aw.
So I'll give her a call on that and see at a reasonable hour. Okay,
Sherry,
thanks.
Ken Bukowski's in the waiting room. Shall I bring him in?
Okay. Now, if we let him in, do we see him or how does that
Yeah,
work?
well, let's see.
Okay.
Here he comes.
All right. I'm looking.
Well, wait a minute.
Okay. All right. The next thing on the agenda then is working groups. What do we, this is a big one. What do we want to achieve, what the working groups should be, and how we organize them. Any of you have any thoughts on that at this moment? Mm-hmm. We chose the word working groups rather than committees. We just thought that was a bit more kind of, action oriented and moving forward and that sort of thing. Okay. Anybody have any thoughts about that? Do I see a tentative hand from Kathleen?
It was tentative.
Okay, go for it.
I'm thinking that process. I'm thinking that we should call for a regional meeting of reps from all the leagues to like an IN North meeting, but all of them have a Zoom meeting and bring up the topics that are there. And as part of it on the agenda would be having them submit people who want to be part of the working groups. And we would, at that regional meeting, of these reps, and we're talking about an hour and a half, 2-hour meeting maximum. And it would be a good way to connect, tell them what we're doing, what's looking ahead, what the working groups are, and then hear from them what their priorities are. They want to share with everybody, because that's the whole purpose of that. And that would be also the way to get from them anyone who's interested in being the working group, and we can outline for them what our working groups are and where we're going to go and what we're going to be talking about. And so it's a really good informational that the league's reps, the league people have asked for. In other words, what are we doing?
Mhm. Well, that of course is a wonderful oversight of process and what we should be doing. It does presume that we have reps.
Doesn't matter. What all we would do would be send it out to the presidents,
Mhm.
and we do have past reps. Send it out to them, and for them to identify who would be the rep, or it would be them, because it goes both ways.
Ah, I see. The president is the rep, or they have a designee. Is that the key to all of this? Okay, and do we have any current group of reps, do you think, or is that a process that
Someone
gets
who's had
changed every
to-
year?
Yes, we do. Yes.
No, I'm sorry, you broke up, Kathleen. Try it again.
As someone who's done it, yes, we do. And I think Madeline, you're putting together that whole list of the presidents and what have you.
Right, and the directories, right.
Directory. So it wouldn't hurt, and I'm thinking if we would call this kind of meeting, it would be, we're into July, it would be something for the 1st of August.
1st of August?
Serious? Because it's going to be a Zoom
That's
meeting.
moments away.
I understand, but
Mhm.
you need to get the message out 1st of August.
Madeline, do you think you can get the directory together that quickly that we identify all the presidents?
I'm just going to see if I can pull this over here. Whoops. I have most of them, and I could just make phone calls to the ones. So at least in terms of having the names of all the presidents, I should be able to by the 1st of August.
Okay, and we can then let me know when you've got that, because I can send an email then out to the appropriate people, telling them what we want to do.
And honestly, what we have is, I have the list of everybody who was in office last year. So if we don't have an email currently, we could send one to last year's person and just ask them to forward it to the current holder.
Right.
Okay, and Kathleen, say again what you're proposing, a Zoom meeting of these folks to ask them what they want the Bay Area League to be doing.
I'll write up. I'll write up something for you.
Oh, good.
Send it to you and send it to you and you, Roma, to make sure because this is going to our whole working group. So to answer your question, what are we going to do with the working groups and how we're going to do it? Because we're the ones taking the lead on these working groups and what we need to do. And I know we've sent out other messages and we've sent it out, but we haven't followed them. And now we've got a lot clearer path of what we want to do. And it would be a very good way, whether, let's say we're talking August 8th, that's a Saturday, but we could do a weekday Zoom meeting, and it would be a way to connect with the local leagues, let them know where we're going, what we're doing, as well as how to get these working groups set up. And the working groups are all about topics that the local leagues are very interested in and have already expressed that they want more.
Nice. And thank you for blocking that out into a message.
Yeah.
That would be fine. I won't be able to send that until I get back from Mendocino. So it would be the 20th when I would be able to get this out. Okay. And,
Okay.
We could make it, if it makes more sense, then we make it the week of August 10th. I'll think about what would be a good,
Okay.
Yes.
All
know,
right.
rather than sooner. I understand. Right?
Yeah, no, and I don't mean to delay unnecessarily, but your ideas are good. I like that, and thank you kindly. We'll be depending upon what we formulate as working groups based on what these people tell us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Wait, Mary?
Yeah.
Well, you're not delaying anything because I was going to beg Kathleen to wait until the next week because where I am in San Jose, we have 2 major ballot issues the league is signing on to. It's due August 7th, and it is crazy. And I just wanted to, in terms of some encouragement, I had probably the best meeting ever with South County leagues where I was able to talk about this. I've already got 1 volunteer for Alex. I have about 3 interested in my committee. So I'm not quite sure what changed, but people's ears finally perked up. We have a brand new president, and the president is more into regional government, which helps.
Excellent.
So at any rate, and I want to support Kathleen, what you said about that meeting. I just want to say, I think that's really critical. So thank you.
Great. We'll, this will be, of course, by Zoom, and so it'll be dependent upon Madeline's availability too. And I'd like the whole board to be on this, you know, with them.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. Thank you very much. Now, let's see what's next. Oh, just a technical thing. Take a look at the 11:30 item here in which I asked, how do we include local league folk who want to attend our meetings via Zoom? How do we let them know that they can? And would we allow them to contribute via chat? And so forth. Any thoughts about that? Madeline, I guess this is really directed to you.
Well, Ken is here. Here's the example of the local league person, right? So the question is, we can, it's really up to whether or not we want to include the Zoom link in the agenda when you post the agenda. Because if we did that, that would be available to anybody who's reading the agenda. And we get the admit. I mean, so I know Ken, and when he came, his name came up to be admitted in, I could screen him. And if somebody came who we didn't know, we could just
ask them who they were.
Ask them who they are. Just be aware of the fact that as they come in, you want to know who they are so you can put their name into the minutes. But that's all we would have to do is just put the publish to make the Zoom link public.
Okay, what do you think about that? Let's see, we've got Leslie and Veda. Veda, what do you think about that?
I think that's a great idea, but just to circle back around process, you'll have to make sure and send me a Word document, or if you send a PDF, make sure that the link is active.
Yes.
I tend to do this by PDF.
Okay, so we can talk talk offline about how to do that.
Okay.
Making sure that link is active, otherwise people will be unhappy.
Otherwise, you just have to say, this is not an active link. Here's the ID, right?
Yeah, you could do that, and then they could just copy and paste it in.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll give them more benefit.
Yeah, I just want the agenda to be readable quickly, you know, just there it is right on our website that they go to it and there it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
My grasp of technology is obviously huge. Yeah. Kathleen.
Just a very quick question. I kept wondering where the agenda was, and finally I looked at my spam. It had gone to spam. And,
oh dear.
And the other part of the problem was it did not want me to open up your attachment saying there were problems with it. So I'm wondering, was I the only one that happened to?
Did anyone else have trouble opening the agenda when I sent it?
It was more.
I did it by word, I think.
Who knows? Anyway, I finally got smart enough to think maybe I should look at spam, because I was shocked that I hadn't gotten anything all the way up.
Right. Can you unspam me?
Yes, which I did.
Okay. And Veda put it up on Saturday, so it wasn't there till then
Till Saturday.
on the web page. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, just wondered.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry. There's always some hang up
Yeah.
somewhere. Jeez. Okay. Any other comments about that? Okay.
Yes,
and
I did have
then
my hand. I had my hand up.
I'm sorry. Oh yes. I'm sorry, Leslie.
I was just going to say that if for some reason we decide that we want to not just put something up on the website with a link, which I've been told, I know Zoom has really tightened things up, but I've been told that can
Zoom
invite
bombing.
issues. Public agencies are doing it all the time because they really have no choice. But that if we have a mailing list of local league presidents and so forth, that the Zoom invitation with the agenda, just that, the invitation with the agenda attached, could be sent to either our local league presidents or the local Bay Area League reps that we're pulling into these meetings on a regular basis, just on a monthly basis. And then we would have a more controlled list. We would know who is likely to come in. Other people like Ken could sign up to be added to it, but that would basically be our notification list for those meetings. Just the way, for example, I sat on an advisory counseling committee in Contra Costa County. It used to be that people could sign up to be on the list for the meeting packets to be sent out and that notification. So that's an alternative. It is much more controlled. It's less accessible for the general public. That's a pro and a con, but it is an alternate to look at.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds very sound. Something like a board meeting should be, I think, less readily available to the entire public. Very different from when we're trying to encourage people to come to something like League Day or whatever that's going to be more public. Yeah, Veda?
Yes, my hand is waving. I can't decide if I'm interrupting the meeting or not. This is just to lift up what Leslie has mentioned. I think it's a great opportunity for us to outreach and also for our local league presidents to identify what's coming up and what we're looking at in the future. So I think it's an all-around win-win.
Righto. We risk, I've just been reading because I have such a peripheral interest in technology of this so-called Zoom bombing that can occur. And I don't know, again, if the Zoom people, the inventors of that are so informed that they've taken care of it or what the status is. But
they have done a lot. And one of the things is the waiting room to start with. People automatically now go into the waiting room. It used to be they could just jump in.
I see.
So they've taken a number of precautions, which is one reason I'm a little less concerned than I might be otherwise. Somebody at one point said, if you're going to put the stuff out there, maybe you don't want to say it's women. LWV is one thing, women is something else, because some of these guys, some of these were, and they were guys, and they were just, they were doing guy stuff. But everything I've seen indicates that the problem with Zoom bombing has really diminished. The problem now that public agencies are having, at least the ones in Contra Costa that I've heard reported, is that sometimes you have people who are feeling a little more liberated by the virtual environment than they would be if they were standing at a podium in a meeting, and they let loose with some stuff that they wouldn't in a public meeting. But that's different. I mean, that is just a different version of public comment that needs to be dealt with.
Poor Marianne, we don't want her to be offended twice just because we recorded it. Okay, thank you.
Sherry, the one other thing I would say is, if we are looking to take a position on an issue, like to decide whether to co-sign a ballot measure, right? If we have that kind of an issue that we're looking at, which doesn't happen that often, but I think requires a different level of publicity and letting people know that they can come in and be heard by us. So that, right? So that would be the one time that I think maybe we would just make an exception and in fact, put the link on the website and say to the general public, because it wouldn't even just be members. I mean, I would think we would want to hear from, I mean, what we have done in the past is heard from advocacy groups on both sides of an issue, right? But there also may be members of the public who would want us to hear what they had to say. So that would be the one time I think would be important to make the link more public. But otherwise, I think it does make sense to just let the league presidents know, and then the league president can then send it out and let everybody know she's got the link and share it with whoever she wants to share it with, or he.
Currently on our website, it lists if you're interested in the Zoom information to call the office. Would you like me to rephrase that?
Since nobody probably will answer on an office phone.
I don't know how much Alec is checking that voicemail.
I think it forwards to his home address, to his home phone or his cell phone.
We should check on that before we definitely do one thing or another, but we should check on it.
But he doesn't have it, I have it. So why doesn't, it could just say to email me at lwv.madeline.kronenberg@gmail.com.
Could you repeat that, please?
Yes, lwv.madeline.kronenberg@gmail.com.
With an E.
Okay.
And you check that hourly, don't you?
Hourly. That actually comes up on my phone. That's the one thing. If I look at my phone and I actually get something, it comes up. Never goes to spam. That's the one that works. My others are, mysterious. But
Take
anyway.
note, all. Okay. All right. Are we done with that? Well, I hope so, because we're actually a little bit ahead of time. So we're at 11:45 now on the agenda. What regional governance agencies do we need to observe? And how do we recruit observers? Some of you already are. And could we iterate again who is and which they're doing, and then to see where we have any gaps?
Want me to go first? I'm going to MTC's Veda, Program and Allocation. I'm the chair of the public, the Equity and Access Subcommittee for the Public Advisory Council, and I go to the Public Advisory Council.
Where's that physically located if you were going to be physical?
In San Francisco, on Bryant, at the MTC building.
Okay, just curious. Who else?
Veda, would you repeat the first one? I didn't get it.
Bay Area Toll Authority, Beta,
Oh.
BATA.
Toll Authority?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, who else? Kathleen?
I'm appointed to the ABAG MTC, the Regional Planning Committee, RPC, and which I'm not an observer. I am one of the decision makers. And I am sitting there in the community interest spot as League of Women Voters Bay Area. I also, because of that, have been attending or observing the ROG, the Regional Advisory Group, and this is the one, these are many groups and agencies commenting on the housing and the planning and whatever, as well as most recently invited to the housing methodology, again going to all the housing planning and whatever issues that are going on. And do note that I do sit on the state LWVC legislative analysis. I'm part of that team and doing legislative analysis of certain bills, climate change, etc., looking at the issue through the lens of housing, land use, the transportation, as well as CEQA reform. So I'm
Great, Hawk.
Yeah, I'm there.
You know what, Kathleen, if you could send, she probably would appreciate that because there's a lot of initials and
I know.
subcommittees and what all. And so you could get her straight on that, and the
Thank you.
rest of
That
us
would help.
too.
I will do that.
Okay, thank you. And Roma?
Thanks. Well, I'm also state legislative team for housing, although that's been pretty inactive. Just to let Kathleen know, we exchanged some emails the other day about looking at housing bills. So anyway, I am looking at paying close attention right now to the Blue Ribbon Transit Recovery Task Force. And that is not so much for this body, but because it's quite, the CARES allocation was very controversial in Santa Clara County with our Valley Transportation Authority. So I'm sure others will want to watch that because they are reinventing transportation, nothing less. I do occasionally check in on MTC program and allocations. And then let's see, I'm watching the brand new, I'll say this out for you, Marianne. The initials are BAHFA, B-A-H-F-A, and it's the Bay Area Housing Finance Authority. And this came out of state legislation. They are not doing a bond measure, which is interesting because of polling, but they are developing and working on a housing plan. So I am following that one quite closely because people are interested in it. If you look at Plan Bay Area, the largest percentage of growth is in the South Bay. So just a lot of issues rolling down here. So I'm looking forward to seeing like a compiled list. And I think, Sherry, I just heard you say, send what we're watching to Marianne.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
So,
please.
yeah. And then so we can make sure we don't have any gaps. I have quite a challenge trying to figure out, and maybe Veda or Kathleen can give me some advice here. Sometimes work is done in subcommittees. And so by the time it gets to the board you're watching, it's not unlike any legislative body, the decisions are a done deal. So if anybody has any advice on this board about what to be watching in terms of a subcommittee, I'd really appreciate that heads up. And of course, as Kathleen mentioned, the housing methodology is something that's what is it, Kathleen? Regional housing
Needs allocation.
Needs allocation. Thank you, Kathleen. At any rate, that is a total freak out right now. I've already been contacted by YIMBY telling me it's too low and others too high. So anyway, I just want to call that out and thank God Kathleen's paying attention to it.
Whoa. Okay. Are you done, Roma?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Madam Chair.
Alex.
I have to check in with, there's a woman in the Fremont League who has been watching a regional water agency, and she was quite ill. She's coming back now, and I have to contact her. I forgot to do that to see if she's willing to go to their, to attend their Zoom meetings. She writes the best reports I've ever seen. That's number one. Number two, all of the folks that mentioned the agencies that they're either in, watching, lurking, whatever, I would really love it if they could write before the next board meeting, write just a paragraph or a couple of sentences, maybe one paragraph on what the agency or group does, and then some kind of little mini summary of what they're addressing. Because so many of these agencies have obscure goals, and I don't know what they are. So it would help me, and I think it would actually help pretty much everybody on the board if we kind of had an overview of what is being watched and what isn't. It doesn't have to be a long, lengthy official observers report, but just kind of a little summary, if that's possible, before the next board meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric?
Yeah, hi. I apologize for being gone a little while, but what's happening right now is just something that fits right into here, and that is to find out what's going on. And here in Berkeley, some of the Berkeley City employees have written up a climate action fund, a proposal which wants to put a tax on gas and electricity and fund it on all sorts of green things. And they want to hire 3 more employees to the city to look this whole thing over. And so Diz Swift, who you might know, she is the California chairperson of the Natural Resources division of the league, and I are concerned about this, and we don't like the whole thing. So, but to get the information of what's going on, even in the city here, is sometimes a little bit difficult. But this is an example where all of us natural resources people in the state and in the Bay here have to get ourselves together to find out what is going on, and then to talk about what to do about it. So anyway, that's is this situation here, and I'm just throwing in a little bit about what is happening right at the moment here. You might be interested in that.
Thanks very much, Eric. Leslie?
Unmute myself. Yes, I was going to second what Alex said about small descriptions, because, and if we can get them for some of the agencies that are not being monitored as well, I don't know how we would do that, but I will see what I can do in my arena, because I think those are also things that need to be shared at the IN meetings and what other types of meetings we have. If we're asking people to join working groups, it may be that they would be interested in monitoring an agency that's associated with that topic, but it's a lot easier if you have a description of what the agency is, when it meets, and so forth. We did try to do that for all the transportation agencies at one point. I think that grid is now outdated. But it was at least a start. And unofficially, I am keeping an eye on the air district, but not consistently. I mean, it's because of what I cover for the monitor. So I do watch their agendas to some extent, but it's not as if I am specifically focusing in just on that. So it would be great to have somebody who was interested in it, who was following them consistently and making sure that they sat in on at least part of the webcast of the meetings on occasion to see more about how the various commissioners handle issues.
Thank you, Leslie. Veda.
So I think there's a new group that MTC is putting together called the Fair Integration Program. It's going to be 7 public advisory committee members, along with
Veda, could you give that title again? I missed it.
Fair Integration, and I forget what the.
Oh, it's the yeah. Alex and I are aware of it. It's the streamlining transit thing. Yes.
So,
pardon me. Seamless transportation.
Seamless Bay Area.
Right.
So it's consists of 15 other community members that are invited. It's just starting now. The first meeting is on the 30th, and I think it would be a great idea if we could find someone to look at that one along with the executive committee, because MTC is doing all their work in committees. So if we're not in the committee, we don't have any grit, should we say, because by the time it gets to the commission, everyone's so busy just wanting to get out of the meetings. There's not a lot of conversation going on.
Alex?
I was just going to write a quick message, but Leslie, the league member over your way, the gentleman, if he would be interested, I think if he could, if the meetings for the Seamless group are available to the public, that would be a great one for him to monitor for us.
I think that the person you're referring to, Alex, is the husband of one of our newer members. And I got that from him some time ago. And in the meantime, his wife had said that he was interested in monitoring some city council meetings. So it's possible that he's going to be taking that on. His background is as a real estate lawyer, as I remember. So he's interested in development type issues. And I think his interest in regional agencies was less in transportation than it was in the ABAG type stuff.
Okay.
So when I went into it, I'll have to double check on that, but I'm not sure that he's the right one for the seamless transportation. I noticed that Ken just posted in the chat what he's been following and said that he would be interested in following the seamless meetings.
That'd be great.
Also, if as we start getting more people on the transportation group, we may find more people who are specifically interested in that.
Thanks. I've got to go now, folks, and take Peter to the doctor.
Yes,
I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Every good wish with that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we got hands. Look at this. Roma.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I mention, I've been watching, and I believe it's called MTC something or other and ABAG Executive Committee, because, and I forgot why I got even focused on it. So does somebody remember the exact title? It's part of, Kathleen, it's part of that merged group that's going on. And it's joint. And that's why it caught my interest. And it's the two of them together. And I know they're having conversations about merging several committees. So I was just curious if anybody's tracking that, because that seems kind of fascinating about following up on the whole merger issue. So I just didn't know, what was a priority there.
I have been trying to navigate where that is, but it's very much a subcommittee type of thing, and I always don't, by the time I find out anything, it's already happened, or they're not very transparent about it. Ken Bukowski's been really good about, kind of highlighting what's happening there. But the last time I talked with them, this was very much what you would call an issue that's kind of put in limbo for a period of time. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Eric has a hand up, but he's not there. so we'll move on. Ken, I just wanted to acknowledge that we're getting your comments in chat, and we appreciate that a lot. That's yay.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we follow that executive committee for the third time, because there are a lot of committees that are being combined. In fact, the public access public advisory committee and the RPC is now, they're talking about how they're going to merge those two together and create a 27 member committee, they're talking to us, the PAC side, but they're not talking to the ABAC side.
Okay, and again, any of this that you can get to Marianne.
Please.
Yes, so she as well as the rest of us can get that straight, because it's a, what do they call that? A vegetable soup. So, yeah, Kathleen?
To go back to, I think, what was stated before, it sounds like, I think what Alec was saying, it sounds like you want from all of us on a regular basis to file some kind of report before the board meetings on these committees and anything that has come up. Is that a fair, that's literally an assignment you're asking for us.
You put it in a nutshell, and that would be very appreciated. We got some bits
But
and
I
pieces.
think that what Alex was asking for also is like the 2-sentence description of what does this vegetable soup belong to?
Right.
When you say Beta, when you say it's the Bay Area Toll Authority, what does it do?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I actually have a PowerPoint presentation that lists.
Yeah, I know. I don't want the whole power presentation.
If you could give us the Reader's Digest condensed version of the PowerPoint,
3
that
slides.
would be appreciated. Yes, and thank you. It is what Alex was addressing also.
Where do you want us to file these reports? Just an email to everyone?
Well, where indeed do we have a central collection point? We really don't. We can consider that later as putting something maybe up on the website or whatever that could gather those things. But in the meantime, just send out to the board.
Okay.
Yeah. And everybody who doesn't want to see it can delete it. So Eric, are you lowering your hand? Is that it? It says lower hand.
No,
On
I
your...
didn't do anything. I stepped out because of a telephone call on this whole Berkeley Climate Action Fund thing again.
Okay, I just lowered your hand.
I've gone for a few minutes. No, I don't know how to do that.
Okay, Roma.
This is an aside, so forgive me, but watching the Blue Ribbon Task Force, Transit Recovery Task Force, they just allocated $563 million, a recommendation to MTC Commission, allocated it based off a PowerPoint, and from what I could see, no data was available to people voting. I honestly, I didn't think MTC could shock me anymore, but that shocked me.
I wonder where they're getting the money.
That's government. It's the CARES pass-through federal money.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. A guaranteed source of income.
And aren't they saving like $17 million aside from this package and the last one to be allocated later?
Yes, Veda, they squirreled some money away, and I didn't really understand what the purpose was, so I can't speak to it, but you're right. You're right.
That's the big question mark that everybody has.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, is there anything? Put your hand down, Roma. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, got it. All right, we're cleared here. Okay, next on the agenda was breaking out the communications task for a working group. And what I'd like to suggest is that Veda and I and whomever else would like to join us communicate by email to put together a, say, 4-pronged communications working group, so that Ann Draper and the nominating committee, she's been kind enough to volunteer the nominating committee to go out and fetch based on that breakout. of tasks so that they would know that they are looking for 3 people, 4 people, whatever, and be able to be specific to that. Is that okay with you, Veda?
Sure.
Okay. Anybody else like to join us on that?
Is it possible that I could join? I don't claim any great skills in that area, but it's just such a hot topic in the South Bay that I'd just like to kind of see what was going on. In fact, I promised them that we would get back with some kind of communications plan. So at any rate, it's just a hot topic. So if I could just be looped in, I would really appreciate it.
Sure enough. And Veda has already sent out ideas about the breakout or breakup or composition of the working group, and we can work on that as a first draft. I don't mean to spend oodles of time on this. I just want to give some direction to the nominating committee, which they've asked for, so that we could be a little more specific with recruitees. Okay? And I'll convene that by email when I get back from Mendocino.
I'd like to second having Roma on that group because her experience on the nominating committee when we were looking for people, I think would also be helpful.
Oh, absolutely. Roma, consider yourself recruited.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anything else about that? Okay. Madeline has told us about how the directory is progressing.
It's coming. Let me just add one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I got the 3 leagues I still need to have information from are, Alex has got Fremont, Union City, San Jose, but Roma, you were saying you do have the San Jose information.
Yeah.
And then the last one is San Francisco.
Ah,
Really?
they frequently are. It's so odd. When I was on the Alameda, not the Alameda, and I was on something where we were trying to get San Francisco as part of it. When you consider the size of their league, I think they've got a bunch of members.
They have, and they have Leah. I mean, she's there.
No,
but
no, they're much smaller than they used to be. They
That's,
really have lost members. As somebody who sent out those PMP invoices, I'm very, and
oh yeah,
calculates the delegates for
Ah.
convention. They really have dropped.
To what do you think?
I'd have to check, but I think it's around about the same level as my own local league, which is 200 something, maybe less, and the 175 to 200 level. It's not what we think it is.
Yeah, given their population, it's a puzzlement, kind of. And also the fact that they used to be essentially a corporate outfit. That is to say that their members were representatives of law firms and corporations and what all. And it was a very different structure from what the rest of us are familiar with as individuals. And that seemed to plump up their budgets and their finances and don't they have an executive director?
At one point they had part-time office staff.
Yeah.
But it was much more like other types of nonprofits where you put people on the board because of the role that the other roles they're playing in the community, rather than the way that the league boards have traditionally worked.
Yeah.
So, but I think that has changed, and I don't know whether it's connected with their membership decrease, whether it's a chicken and egg or what's going on there, but the two things seem to have paralleled.
Yeah. Madeline saying that it's that they're the one of the last to perform. That's been typical for them for some reason.
Yeah.
So unpredictable given their size and shape and so forth. So be persistent. Of course you will be.
Of course, we will pursue them. Otherwise, we'll just keep using Leah. I mean, that's our contact person. But.
Is she president or what? What was?
She was. I mean, what I'm trying to find out is if she still is.
Well, she is also still one of our league designees on the bond oversight committee. So if nothing
One of
else,
our
you can
designees.
play with
Uh-huh.
us for that.
Mm-hmm.
Sure enough. Good enough reason to try to nail her down. Okay. All right. We've come to that point on the agenda where we decide what we want to put off to the August 10th. One of the things that we'll want to deal with then is the tentative calendar of dates and tasks. And we're still kind of sorting that out, and we'll further sort that at the next meeting. Between the retreat and this meeting, I think we've accomplished a good launch for this upcoming board year. And I really like this whole Zoomy thing. I mean, I would love to squeeze you all, but we'll have to put that off for an indeterminate time. But in the meantime, we're getting good attendance. And I think that the structure allows for us to participate with our hand raisings and what all. So, okay. Is there anything else, as Madeline has always said, for the good of the order, that you'd like to insert at this point? Yes, Marianne.
I note on the chat that Ken says he has not been recognized on the things he's volunteered for. So someone should take a look at that.
Okay.
I did just respond to him privately about the communications team.
Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. Ken, would you like to say something? You're not muted. You should be able to be heard. Can you hear me, Ken? On the picture of you there, it doesn't look like you can hear me. Well, you've been able to use the chat, so I want to say thank you for your volunteering to sit in on those various meetings. I know that you do some videoing of such, and that those are publicly available. And I think that's all a very good thing. Not being a member of the board, you won't be representing us, but nonetheless, any reporting back that you would care to do to us on your observations, we would be happy to hear. And so I'm hoping you're hearing me say this. And anything further, if you want to put that into the group chat, that will be a way to communicate with us.
Alex and I
So-
are also aware of Ken's interest in the transportation working group, so that has been noted. And as Veda knows from, as Roma knows from being on nominating committee, we already were aware of Ken's interest in communications. So.
Okay. All righty. Anything further? Yes, Kathleen.
You were asking for possible topics for August 10th meeting.
Oh, yes.
I'm thinking that given the legislation, the elections, or whatever, would it not be of value for us to look at the various housing and other bills, as well as the propositions, and what do you see, what does our group see as our role in terms of endorsing, not so much endorsing, but putting out information on it? What are we going to be doing? Are we going to be giving any kind of feedback or analysis? I'm just wondering what our role is going to be.
That's something that we can discuss. My off the top of the head is that since they're statewide propositions, that it's the state league's function to do the dissemination of our attitude, let's say, on these various things. There aren't any regional issues this time, are there? I'm not aware of any. If they are,
No,
that
a
to me is
faster
our
Bay
rather-
Area, that transportation, mega transportation measure was the only one that was in the offing, and they pulled that when the coronavirus hit.
Ah, I see. So it was pending, but then it didn't occur.
They needed to get the legislature to approve putting it on the ballot, and it just was not possible.
I
The
see.
polling was a disaster as well, which
Oh.
is a sobering
Yeah.
thought. The post-COVID polling didn't even come close, so
Right.
they pulled it.
Right.
Mhm.
So that's
Good
one
enough
reason
reason.
that Plan Bay Area has the next mega measure of being 2030. You know, they say they're going to work on something in 2021 that will possibly put the funding in place for large projects by 2035. So that gives us timing on that, but it isn't something where we need to deal with it with this election. But
Maybe
at
not
some
in this
point, we're going to
lifetime.
have that regional housing funding measure that's going to come along. And when's that going to be, Roma? It's not going to be this election,
You know what? They went back and forth about whether they were going to combine the two. I think that's off the table, and they're delaying the transportation. I do think that Assemblymember Chu is going to bring that forward. So that I think that's something we should keep a close eye on. And, you know, that's part of communicating with the locals, is getting that word out.
Right.
So anyway,
Right.
that'll go through the BAFA. And so I am keeping a close eye on that one, because I don't want to get in the same, Madeline and Kathleen know what I'm talking about. I don't want to go back and retread the CASA path.
No, no.
Right.
No.
Anyway.
Okay. Thanks. Veda?
Well, for the next board meeting, I'd like to discuss the me moving into my role as voter service chair. And I sent everyone a copy of a survey, and I do agree it's still early, and that's why I'm working so far in advance so that we can finalize the survey and get it sent out to find out the need of the local league. So can we add that to the next meeting?
We certainly can, and that's something we'll discuss too with these reps when we do the Zoom,
Yeah.
you know, of representatives from our various member leagues. Okay. Yes, Madeline.
I just wanted to share this out. I'm on another committee that's developing candidate questions for a variety of candidates for office. And the specific lens these questions will have are a social justice lens and a racial justice lens. And that's something I haven't seen before when we've done our own forums where we've, developed questions for different people. That hasn't been a lens that I've seen used. And that's why there's folks from the Social Justice or the Racial Justice Committee of Contra Costa who are leading the charge here on this other committee to put some questions together and frame that issue as something that they want people, candidates, to take a position on. So I mention this simply because I think I'm going to have this. I know it's being created. So if somebody wanted it, or if we could, I thought maybe we could share it out with other leagues. It would be something that not everybody's thought to do. And this is really being done by a very diverse group of folks.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a
Contra
great.
Costa is a diverse county, for
Mhm.
sure. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Anything else? Oh my God, look at this.
Look at
Well,
you.
We're 12 minutes early. Okay.
Oh,
All
we have
right.
to have a Zoom game now.
Now,
Resist.
survey. Let's take a survey. How many of us
Okay.
have taken the census?
I'm sorry, Veda?
How many of us have taken the census?
Oh, yeah. Early. Gosh, months ago. Whenever.
And I'll take your photo. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Oh, that's
raise
what
your
we want to
hand.
do. Right.
Raise your hand if you've taken the census.
Roma, you're blurry. Sit
Yeah,
back.
okay.
Oh,
1,
Okay.
2. Raise your hand if you've taken the census. 1, 2, 3. Okay, there you go. Thank you. My computer's old, so it takes a minute, like an old camera.
Okay. I was going to be a census worker, and I've progressed through. They've had to put all kinds of things off, the trainings, the orientations, all of this.
Right.
And finally, I got the call, and they told me that the training was going to happen when I will be on my 3-week family vacation in August.
Oh,
And so I'm really disappointed because I was looking forward to being an enumerator, somebody who does get assigned a neighborhood, does follow-up questions. My husband said, depending on the neighborhood, he was going to be out on the sidewalk, just like, you know, dads do at Halloween,
right.
to make sure. So we're not having to do that anymore. But I'm sorry, because I don't think I'm going to make it to the next census.
Oh.
I mean, sure I could, but I wouldn't be in the mood, I don't think.
I bet you would be.
Okay, let's adjourn. Madeline will push the magic button and we'll
Push the magic button, and Marianne, I will send you all of the information as soon as
Send me all.
it's downloaded.
I'm befuddled.
Not you, not Marianne. All righty. Farewell all.
Farewell.
Bye-bye.